Dear students, today we will discuss about irrigation. Irrigation is backbone of our economy and it is also backbone of agriculture. We will discuss about the sector overview, challenges and the strategy for future. We will cover some of the topics like importance of irrigation and its history, the types of irrigation, then detailed overview of the all type of irrigation methods, problems associated with each type of the irrigation system and the solutions. First, we will discuss about agriculture and its link with irrigation. We all know agriculture sustains the life and irrigation sustains the agriculture. There is no doubt and discussion about it. The dependable irrigation is essential for self-reliance in food production. Unless and until we have dependable source of irrigation, we cannot make sure that our agriculture production will be sustained and without any doubt. So we require dependable irrigation sources. Another thing is not only agriculture, the species of animals, they depend on plant for survival. The herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, human, everybody is dependent on plant life because only plants can make their own food from the natural resources. Animals cannot make their own food and they are dependent on plant life. So plants are dependent on water. So ultimately sustainability of our life depends on proper irrigation. We will discuss about history of irrigation in India. Irrigation was considered as part of economic life and our religious texts have covered irrigation exhaustively. The Brihaspati Samhita, which describes about life, rules of life and how to profess life, the duties of king, duties of persons, etc. It has been described that construction of water bodies is a pious work and everybody should construct water bodies like wells and tanks during his lifespan, and rich people have special responsibility about it. Indus Valley civilization and other civilizations, when digging was done, the most of the places the irrigation structures were found. All old civilizations were developed near rivers. All big towns, all of us know, they were developed near rivers or sea. In South India, the Cholas constructed Grand Anicut to provide irrigation from Kaveri water in 2nd century. So, history of irrigation in India is very old, and since ancient time, the emphasis was given on irrigation for agriculture. The British rulers, when they came to India, they centralized the irrigation. Earlier it was decentralized and people were using irrigation as a community product. But British government centralized it and they started building canals, dams, weirs and other things to provide irrigation to farmers, and the main aim was to collect land revenue from the farmers as it was main source of government at that time. So the organized irrigation sector started after British rule. The command area based irrigation, it was the need of the hour and at that time no other planning was there. So command area based irrigation was planned during British time and it resulted in prosperity of people near the rivers and near the canals which were built during that time, and even still today the areas which are near to rivers and canals, they are prosper than other part. But it divided the India into two parts. The rural India was divided into two parts, that is rain fed and irrigated. Accordingly, the cost of land, the lifestyle of people, everything was dependent on whether irrigation is there or not. After independence, the Green Revolution was introduced in India for the purpose of enhancing food production. The reason population pressure was there and we required more food for more population, and we never wanted to depend on foreign countries for food. The population pressure was there and land reforms were there. They resulted in small holdings. The big holdings were distributed and small holdings were created. The one of the major component of Green Revolution was intensive cultivation. Intensive cultivation required more water. So more water was extracted only from the ground. The technology was developed by that time and the tube wells were popularized and a boom was there in groundwater sector. The boom resulted in high food production and more land was brought under irrigation. But it came with a new set of problems which will be discussed later on. Now we have to sustain this boom. We have to find ways how to increase the food production for ever increasing population and how to bring prosperity to rural masses by bringing entire cultivable land under irrigation. Any of the government will continue to make irrigation as its priority. Irrigation can be done in many methods, and first and oldest organized method was canal irrigation. It was first developed in India by British rulers, and most of the canals in present India, they were developed during British rule. And India has largest canal system in the world at present. The canals are nothing but they are man-made channels which carry the water which is diverted from the natural rivers. It means we use river water and transfer this water to other areas where there is no natural flow of water. Before diverting this water from rivers, we need to store this water, and this water is stored in form of dams, weir, barrages, and they are called diversion structures. And there are mechanical gates which can regulate the flow of water in canal. They can increase or decrease the flow of water depending on requirement, depending on season, depending on cropping pattern. The water is further distributed from a canal by miners and distributaries, and the control of this water is with the local government, which decides how much water is to be distributed to which area. Therefore, canal water is a centralized form of irrigation which is controlled by government. The canal water has certain advantages. First advantage is quality of water. The water in canals is coming from rivers, and rivers take their water from the melting ice in Himalayan areas, or they take water from the catchment area or from big lakes, etc. And the water is sweet water, non-polluted water, and best for agriculture or human consumption. The canals have transformed the agriculture economy of northern India, western India, and other parts where canals were built by British and later on by government. We all know that Indira Gandhi Canal, which is passing through Rajasthan, has transformed the life of people of Rajasthan, and it is lifeline of millions of people living there. The low cost of operation is the distinct advantage of canal system in India, because water flows by gravity and it does not require any form of energy for distribution of water. The diversion structures like dams can be used for generating electricity. They produce clean power without any pollution. The canals were also used for transportation of wood and navigation during British period, but slowly after development of road sector, this thing was not popularized and slowly stopped. The canals are also providing drinking water to the cities and urban population nowadays. The canal irrigation was very popular at some point of time, but it is declining due to various reasons, and we will discuss about the problems with canal irrigation. The construction of diversion structures and canals, they require huge amount of land, and it causes ecological and social concerns. Because of land, lot of persons are displaced at the time of construction of dams or weirs or barrages, and their resettlement is a very big problem. Huge investment is required initially, and the income is generated in years to come. The dams constructed in earthquake prone zones like Himalayan area, they put a question on question on their safety, because safety is a big concern during earthquake or any other natural calamity. Because of Himalayan region is a very sensitive area for earthquake, it is in zone 5 as far as earthquakes are concerned. So their safety is a concern for government and the people living in downstream. Another area which is very important is land required for rehabilitation. When we construct big dams or other hydroelectric projects or water retaining project, we displace lot of people, and they have to be rehabilitated, and for that purpose we require more and more land. Now, whenever there is excess rain in catchment of rivers, there is a danger of flood, and life of the people in downstream is always in danger, those living in downstream of the river. Due to lot of siltation in beds of rivers and also reduction in life of the reservoirs, the flash floods are caused even with the small rains, and this problem is increasing day by day. The canals built during British period, they were unlined canals, and they are causing lot of seepage of water in the areas which are adjacent to the canals, and lot of water is wasted through these unlined canals, which is causing waterlogging. The structures like dams, they are always target of enemies, so that they can cause mass destruction, and now they are targets of the terrorists. So we have to do lot of expenses for security of these structures. Canals are also reducing the quantity of water from the natural flowing rivers, thereby reducing the speed of the water flowing in the river, and the siltation increases, the depth of river decreases, and the pollution increases. The effluents are not diluted due to less quantity of water, and aquatic life is also disturbed. The less depth of the rivers make it prone to the floods. Now we have to look forward. What should be our strategy in case of canals? Despite several disadvantages which we have discussed earlier, there is no substitute at present of canals in the areas where groundwater is not available or groundwater is not fit for agriculture or human consumptions. Like Rajasthan, like some parts of Haryana, we have to use canal water, and there is no alternative. So we have to make some strategy for proper use of canal water. First thing is maintenance of these diversion structures and canals have to be taken on war footing. The seepage from these areas, the leakage from the canals, all other problems have to be addressed by proper maintenance of these structures. Another thing is lining of the canal. Wherever canals are there, they have been constructed during British period. Now we have to at least provide lining to them so that there is no loss of water from the unlined canal. For making the canals economically viable, we can develop the water transport and we can develop sweet water fisheries in the canals so that we can get more revenue out of the canals, and this can be used for maintenance of canals and the reservoirs. The falls are available at various places, and these falls can be used for establishing micro hydroelectric plants, and these micro hydel plants can supply the electricity to the nearby villages on a standalone basis, or it can be used for other purposes like industry or any other thing. The catchment area which is feeding water to the river will have to be treated by vegetation so that silt is not released in the water and reducing the economic life of the reservoir which is feeding to the canals and reducing the life of the reservoirs. This is very essential, and this has to be taken on war footing because life of most of our dams is reduced to the half due to the heavy siltation, including our Bhakra Nagal Dam, which is the largest in India, but it is also affected by siltation. We require a lot of funds for maintenance and repair of existing structures, and these funds have to be provided for sustaining the canals which have already been constructed. After canals, there was a boom in irrigation sector, and this boom was caused by the tube well irrigation. In mid-70s, this tube well irrigation was popularized in India after Green Revolution. Before this Green Revolution and tube well irrigation, the main method of extracting groundwater was through the wells only, and there was no other method. The tube well irrigation means extracting water from the ground through mechanical means. Means we have to extract the water from ground by employing pumps, and by employing pumps we get lot of water quickly and with low investment cost. Before development of tube wells, the groundwater was extracted through traditional ways, which were rahats or dhinkli or other things, which were either driven by animals or they were using manpower. Another thing about tube well irrigation is that it has revolutionized the entire irrigation sector because it has decentralized the ownership of irrigation structure. The canals were in the control of the government and bureaucrats, and supply of water was at their will. But now owner of the irrigation structure is farmer himself, and he can control the water when he requires, how much he requires, and in what form he requires. That is the biggest achievement of the tube well irrigation system. And growth of this system is not confined to India. Entire South Asia is using this form of irrigation for development. The technology has been developed for every type of soil and every type of strata. Even the hard rocks can be bored through mechanical rigs for construction of wells. So this type of irrigation is being developed everywhere in India, and it has resulted in over 60% of the irrigated areas. Means 60% of area is being irrigated through this tube well system. But the remote sensing data shows that it is actually 75%. It means our data in physical form is not complete. The actual irrigation through tube well system is more than 75%. And at present we have 20 million pumps. 20 million pumps require lot of energy and lot of maintenance. So a lot of manpower is also involved in this tube well irrigation sector. Now we will discuss about benefits of the tube well system to farmer. First benefit is low investment and low gestation period. The investment on a tube well is very low. It may range from 20,000 to 1 lakh, or in case of deep bore wells it may be few lakhs. But we start getting water immediately. There is no gestation period. Immediately after boring of tube well and installation of a pump set, we get water. The asset is controlled by the farmer or owner at his own will. There is no interference from anybody. The irrigation is highly efficient. There is very less loss of water due to evaporation, as the transportation length is very low. The tube wells are situated near to the farms, and there is a drought proofing for at least 1 or 2 monsoon seasons, because we require recharge of groundwater through monsoon. So it is to be there, but at least for 1 or 2 seasons we can survive with the tube wells. Technology for drilling tube wells is very easy and available. Also the finance is also easily available. So this is contributing towards development of tube well sector very fast. Next is, it is the priority of the successive governments. The development of tube well irrigation is the priority of all the governments. Whatever government is coming in central or state, every government is giving benefits to the farmers who are using tube well irrigation. Banks are also financing these schemes individually and on the local area basis. Earlier subsidies were also available for use of boring tube wells and allied activities. Now it is not only beneficial to the individual farmers. The tube well irrigation is beneficial to the nation. Tube well irrigation has created much more potential and much more irrigated areas as compared to what has been created in 150 years by the government. The British rulers created canals, and up to 1970s some canals were also built by Government of India. But the total irrigation created by these canals cannot match the potential created by the tube wells in 25 to 30 years. And the expenditure involved on the canals and storage structures was very high, and it involves public funds. The tube wells do not require any public fund. They are generally built and maintained by the individual farmers. This is the another benefit to the nation. So tube wells are contributing towards high growth of the agriculture economy. The other benefit is ownership to the farmer. Farmer owns his tube well, he controls his tube well, and he has a sense of ownership. They also get benefit from sale of the water. There is no contribution from bureaucracy or government officials for use of tube well water. So it is a self-managed system in which farmer gets benefit from his investment, and it encourages him for further activities allied to the agriculture. Another benefit is large manufacturing and service sector is developing due to high number of tube wells, high number of bore wells required in India. We require manufacturers, we require service people, we require mechanics, we require transportation, we require fuel. So many type of allied activities are connected with tube wells, like manufacturer who will manufacture the tube wells. There will be material suppliers who will supply the material for tube well manufacture. There will be distributors who will distribute these items to the farmers. There will be skilled persons who will bore the wells and who will install the tube wells. Then maintenance, for maintenance we will require skilled persons. They will also get employment. So boom in this sector has also caused a successive boom in the industry which is associated with the tube well sector. Service sector is also developing with this. Banks are giving a lot of finance for tube wells and they are also getting benefit in form of repayment and interest. There have been lot of studies. What is the impact of tube well irrigation? Each and every study conducted by World Bank or other authorities have shown that boom has resulted in massive reduction in rural poverty. There were pockets which were developed due to canal irrigation in every country, but tube well irrigation has reduced the number of pockets and every area is getting equal prosperity in form of agriculture development. This is the biggest advantage of tube well irrigation. There is no other investment in rural area which is bringing prosperity to the farmers directly. Earlier irrigation was command area based and only command areas were getting benefit of the irrigation. The tube well irrigation has resulted in large irrigated areas and unirrigated areas rather than command areas. Now we can claim that about 75% of our land is under the irrigation. Earlier we were only counting on the basis of command areas. So tube wells are contributing for prosperity of country without much of the public investment. Next is increase in food production. Increase in food production is direct impact of the tube well irrigation. After Green Revolution, when more and more tube wells were drilled and lot of area was brought under irrigation, our food production has doubled and then tripled. The tube well irrigation has resulted in manifold increase in the food production. After tube well boom, the food production is increasing year by year and there are few starvation deaths. We reached to the stage when we started export of the food grains to other countries. There was a time when we were importing food grains, but at a point of time we started export of the food grains to other countries. The tube wells also resulted in drought proofing of the areas. The tube well irrigation wherever available, it can provide drought proofing to that area for at least 1 or 2 seasons. Means failure of monsoon will not cause famine immediately because water stored will be sufficient for at least 1 or 2 seasons. Tube well irrigation activated the subsoil water reservoirs which were earlier available and they were lying unused. Now they have been put to the economic use and they are replenished with the successive rains. The water which was earlier coming in form of rain, it was wasted to sea and now it is used for recharge of the subsurface reservoirs, and the extent of this storage is very high. At present, almost 300 cubic kilometer of water is stored and replenished in the reservoirs if there is a normal monsoon. It means the water which was earlier lost due to runoff is now stored. As we are extracting lot of water, the water is recharged again in every season and which is used in subsequent seasons. The water consumption in this form of irrigation is less as compared to the canal irrigation because of losses in canal irrigation are very high due to seepage and evaporation of water during transportation. The transportation of water from reservoir to field takes lot of time, and depending on the season, lot of evaporation losses are also there. But in case of tube well irrigation, the water reaches to farm immediately and there is no loss of water due to evaporation in the area. Another is public investment. The public investment in case of huge irrigation projects like dams was very high, and it involved lot of bureaucracy and government machinery for construction of these structures, acquisition of land, and then maintenance of these structures. Without the matching returns, these investments were made. But tube well irrigation does not require any investment from the government, and public is making its own investment in the tube wells and repaying the amount of bank loan out of the income generated from the tube wells. The water logging, in the reduction in water logging in the canal fed areas is another advantage of tube wells which was not earlier known. Now it has been observed that without any public investment or any equipment, anything, the water logging in the canal fed areas is reduced due to installation of tube wells in the nearby areas. The more and more irrigated area always bring social and political stability, because if some pockets are rich and some pockets are poor, there is always unrest in social and political scenario. So we can conclude that tube well irrigation has brought lot of prosperity to farmers and agriculture and nation as a whole. But there is a question mark on sustaining this boom. First is wastage of water. We all know water is a nature's gift and it should not be wasted. And this sector has to be sustained for sustaining the food production. If this sector grows without any control and greed is not substituted by the need, the doomsday is very near. At every forum we are discussing the groundwater table, the depletion in groundwater table, coming of salts along with water, and other harms of boom in irrigation sector, boom in tube well irrigation sector. The water table is reaching dangerous levels in some part of India, western part of India like Punjab and Haryana, western Uttar Pradesh, they have already suffered, and southern part of India in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra, this problem is increasing day by day. Only the areas where tube well irrigation has not been developed, they are not suffering from this problem, like eastern part of India. Due to decrease in the groundwater table, we have to increase the depth of the tube wells, and cost of bringing water up to the farm is increasing due to increased depth of the tube wells. This requires more fuel, more energy, and efforts are wasted due to this. Pump sets which were earlier purchased by farmers, they have become redundant due to more horsepower needed now. So this problem is increasing day by day. Cost of fuel is also increasing. Fossil fuels like diesel is used for running tube wells, electricity is used for running tube wells, and cost of these two items is increasing every day. The farmers are not only persons who are extracting groundwater. The industrialists, the urban water supply agencies, the government agencies, they are also drawing groundwater for their need. And they are also equally responsible for depletion of groundwater table. The increasing depth of the tube well is not only causing these problems, but it is causing fluoride and arsenic poisoning also. In some part of the India, the water is not now fit for use because of the increased depth of the bore wells. Pollutants used by people in industry or in farming, they are entering groundwater and they are making water unfit for human consumption. The sector is still uncontrolled and controlled, whichever controls are there, they are not effective. So the sector has to be controlled and some legislation is necessary for controlling the uncontrolled growth of this sector, and we have to sustain this boom of irrigation in form of tube well irrigation. Now we will discuss other forms like other methods to reverse the trend. The method to reverse this trend should be low cost and it should be indigenous method so that it can be popularized in every part of India without much of expenditure. So for solution, we have to only look back. For solution, we do not require very high technology. Only we have to combine the technology with traditional methods. The only source of water with us is rain. Rain is feeding rivers, rain is feeding canals, rain is feeding reservoirs or lakes anywhere. So rain is ultimate source of water, like sun is ultimate source of energy. So in order to sustain the groundwater boom, we have to conserve the rainwater. And the method for conserving rainwater is rainwater harvesting or groundwater recharge. Traditional knowledge is there and we can see the structures like Baolis, Kunds, Tal, Water Temple, Johar in various parts of India which were built by kings at that time and local people. These structures were used for conserving groundwater and recharging the groundwater. Phar system of irrigation is still prevalent in some part of Maharashtra, which is based on conserving this groundwater. Low cost technology is available in India traditionally for harvesting groundwater and recharging the groundwater. The other method available with us is increasing irrigation efficiency. Increasing irrigation efficiency means irrigating more fields in the same amount of water. It means cutting the water use in some form to deal with the problem. And micro irrigation is one of the methods which can solve this problem. The only problem with micro irrigation is that it is capital intensive. Another thing is we can use agronomic practices which can contribute in reducing water requirement. The crop patterns can be modified depending on pattern of monsoon and depending on each area. The other way to reduce the pollution of groundwater is organic farming. Organic farming can deal with contamination and pollution of the groundwater. And we will deal with organic farming in another session in detail. The other holistic way for dealing this problem is watershed approach. Watershed approach is a holistic approach to conserve all the components of nature, be it rainwater, be it soil or forest. And it involves community in most of its components. Various studies done by various organizations have shown that water table rise was noticed and productivity was increased wherever watershed approach was followed, and conservation of soil and forest, they were also integrated part of watershed approach. Government funds are also available for the purpose of implementation of watershed approach, and this will be discussed in detail in another module in this course. Another thing is energy. Energy is required for tube wells, and we use presently fossil fuels or electrical energy, but cost is increasing. In order to sustain the boom of groundwater, we have to reduce this cost. Researches are going on for use of wind pumps, pedal pumps or another type of energy sources for reducing the cost of extracting groundwater. Solar pumps are also available, but their initial cost is very high. Animal driven alternatives are being developed, and there is a lot of need for R&D in this sector. Considering all these things, we still feel that rainwater harvesting and groundwater recharge are the best low cost alternatives which will sustain the boom of this tube well irrigation. The expenditure will also be curtailed. The saving will be there in form of reduced depth of tube wells and reduced fuel cost. Though there is need for educating farmers and general public about use of groundwater so that they should not waste it. Now we will discuss about another form of irrigation, that is tank irrigation. Tank irrigation was very popular before Britishers came to India, and community based tanks were constructed especially in South India, and they were used for irrigation and other purposes. During British period, the community participation was declined and irrigation was centralized and canals and other things were made. The tanks are not only useful for irrigation, but they recharge the groundwater indirectly. So there is urgent need for rehabilitation of these tanks, especially in South India and in all other parts of India, with participation of the community, so that we can get benefit from tank irrigation and also use it for a structure for recharge of the groundwater. The development of this sector will also reduce our dependence on tube well irrigation. Ultimately, it will reduce the consumption of energy. Community participation will ensure that the tanks are misused or polluted by human activities like washing clothes or other activities near the tanks. The most important and future of irrigation is micro irrigation, and we will discuss about micro irrigation now. Micro irrigation methods involve very high initial cost, but they save the precious water and pay back in form of saved water, saved power and increased productivity. So we have to popularize the micro irrigation at any cost. And earlier the metals were used in manufacturing these implements, but now use of plastic has reduced the initial cost of the micro irrigation products. The two popular methods are drip and sprinkler irrigation. We will discuss about drip irrigation now. The main aim of drip irrigation is to supply water directly to the root of the plant. It means there is no wastage of water in between and water is directly going to the root system. The system consists of network of pipes and it is designed to reach the root system of each and every plant. It means that system is not universal and it has to be based on the requirement of the particular field, and it is a farm specific system. It means it has to be designed for each and every farm. The aspects which are considered at the time of designing drip irrigation is cropping pattern, the type of soil, the water quality available and climate of the area. It means what will be the evaporation loss and what will be the average rain, so that we can calculate the requirement of water by drip irrigation. The cost components are cost of pipes, cost of pumps and cost of overhead tank for storing water. The drip irrigation saves lot of labor. It saves most of the water wasted due to evaporation and transportation, and it also reduces the fertilizer cost. It prevents the waterlogging in the fields. It is very useful in the case of growing vegetables and fruit crops because the water is supplied directly to the root system. the productivity increases to the extent of 30 to 75% in case of such crops. The various state governments are offering subsidy for establishment of drip units. So farmers have to take advantage of drip irrigation because it will result in decreased cost and increased productivity. The another form of micro irrigation is sprinkler irrigation. Sprinklers are used to create a artificial rain. They create artificial rain in the form, and network of pipes is used for this purpose, and water is supplied under pressure to nozzles so that it can supply the water to each nook and corner of the plant, of the farm, and it is useful for all types of crops because it is supplying water to entire farm. Irrigation efficiency is very high in case of the sprinkler irrigation, and it is suitable for each and every type of crops, unlike drip irrigation which is suitable for vegetables and fruit crops. The sprinkler irrigation can be used in any type of farm or any type of crop. Now, in order to reduce the cost of pipes and cost of other things, the portable sprinklers have been developed. These portable sprinklers use flexible pipes for reduction in the cost. We can take the sprinkler from one point to another point and use it wherever it is required, and they are also suitable for gardens and urban use. Micro irrigation is now getting popular day by day, and it is increasing because it is highly beneficial to farmers. It is particularly beneficial for high-tech agriculture and export-oriented agriculture. It is resulting in increase in the yield of crops by 30 to 70%, and it can change the entire scenario of irrigation sector if it is popularized and the production of micro irrigation components goes very high, which will also result in reduced cost and popularize it further. The another form of irrigation which is not very popular is lift irrigation. Lift irrigation is used in some particular situations where the streams are at low level and farms are at higher level. This type of situation will occur in hilly regions where a lot of natural streams are flowing, but the farms may be situated or located at some higher level. These units are capital intensive and generally they are established by government. Some farmers who have huge land holdings, they also sometimes establish the lift irrigation units. Lift irrigation consists of one sump well which collects water from a natural stream, and it has pumps which lift the water and supply to the higher level field. So two components are required for any lift irrigation. One is sump and another is a pump. The another thing is storage sump. It is constructed on higher level and it stores the water coming from the sump, and further distribution of water takes place from this small storage tank. The farmers in the upper reach are particularly benefited by the lift irrigation, and they pay back in form of the water charges to government for this purpose. The higher initial cost is making it unpopular, but the lot of agricultural land in hilly areas can be brought to the productive use if we popularize the lift irrigation and reduce the cost by subsidizing it. The productive use of the land located in hilly areas will result in payback of these subsidies. There are some other things which can be used for popularizing or getting more benefit from streams, that are wind pumps or micro hydroelectric units in such areas. In hilly areas, wind pumps can be used for supply of water from the natural streams to higher reaches, because it doesn't involve any fuel. So it will give viability of the investment. Now we will discuss about the oldest method of irrigation before concluding, and that method is dug well. Dug wells are the oldest form of groundwater extraction structures, and they were built from the ancient times and in all of the human settlements. During old days, animal and muscle power were used by our forefathers to extract water from the wells. The Persian wheel or head is very environmental friendly method to get water from the well. The wheel uses animal power for running, and it also increases or enhances the productive use of animals kept by farmers. Nowadays we are using pump sets for extracting water from the wells. The both Pakka wells and unlined wells are available in India, and they are used by farmers generally for drinking purpose. But in some part of the country, the dug wells are still being used for getting farm water. But the old traditional methods of getting water from dug wells are not popular now and at the verge of extinction. Presently, this method of irrigation is not very popular, and there is need to preserve and repair the existing wells so that we can showcase the technology to our future generations, that this was the technology which was once popular without any pollution or without any other thing for agriculture. Now we will sum up the entire discussion. Instead of investing more on new canals, the maintenance and proper management of existing system is needed now. Another thing, pupils' investment in management and distribution of water should be first priority of our policy makers. Next is management of groundwater resources should be top priority to save water and power. The rain-fed areas may be brought under irrigation by possible methods and by changing agronomy practices. The research and development for reducing cost of micro irrigation and pumping must be on our priority list. We must remember that agriculture sustains the life and irrigation sustains the agriculture. Thank you very much.